Society Matters.
Hello and welcome back to History Repeats. I'm your host, Liam Carballal. Joining me again, Richard Acritelli. Hey, Richard, how have you been?
Good. I'm in the middle of expanding on a military history museum that I had done out in Rocky Point that we opened up 3 years ago.
Oh, that's exciting.
Our main founder of hmTv, Bernie Fershpan, helped us greatly with like all these interesting artifacts and stuff like that. Yeah. That's going to be presented in the museum from World War II, even stuff from the 1936 Berlin Olympics.
Oh,
so it's like it's amazing, the stuff that's out there. 85 years later, and so I've been very busy with that. You could actually see it in my face that I've been kind of running around. I probably stink to high heaven, and I got my shirt on underneath that I was kind of running around in, so. But it's a good thing, and we're opening up on May 22nd, Memorial Day weekend at 10:30. It's 108A King Road, right across the street from the Rocky Point VFW. So it's a good thing. We in the original museum, we're starting to look like a little bit of a warehouse, which is a good thing. Because people are bringing things in, that sort of thing. It's something that I'd like to turn into, it's already a military history museum, but somewhere for military leaders, government leaders, writers to kind of collaborate, and kind of meet up, So hopefully down the road, we'll end up hopefully putting a second floor on there and like a boardroom and stuff like that, So
possibly even a studio.
Studio to do all this and maybe make hmTv a
affiliate.
Like a Eastern branch. Eastern Long Island, that sort of thing. Long Island's not a big place; it's a speck on the map, but you got millions of people that live here. Outside of one of the most powerful cities in the world. And so there's a lot of stories and a lot of history and a lot of things that are always going on, So
I'm kind of surprised since volunteering here, just seeing just how many survivors there are still walking around.
Well, I think the survivors are going to outlast the World War II veterans. Because you could have been an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid that somehow survived, whether it was in the camps or you were hidden or, whatever the case was. And you got to remember, there's stories of 16 and 17-year-old Americans fighting, but there's not many of those guys. And more of them are 18, 19, 20 years old. So they had many years still on the survivors. But the survivor, it's a tough thing because in our lifetime, we're going to see the end of the World War I. There's always like a World War I veteran that's like 115 years old down in like New Zealand or Australia. You might see that again with World War II, Korea, and then Vietnam. So you have World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. You actually had veterans in the military that were those three wars. World War II, Korea, and then Vietnam. So you think about the things that they saw.
I think Jimmy Stewart was one of those.
He was a brigadier general, Jimmy Stewart, and they said he suffered from serious PTSD.
Really?
The thing with Jimmy Stewart that is very different than
John Wayne.
Well, John Wayne never went in. Is that he had a smile on him and. Hollywood, very visible person. But he suffered from serious PTSD. And you kind of have to wonder, like he's making these movies, It's a Wonderful Life, right? Amongst a lot of other movies. And
Feifel goes west.
yeah, I mean, he's just, you got to think in the back of his mind, you know, that he had taken so many missions over occupied Europe. And up until the Battle of the Bulge, most of those pilots or most of those air crews up until the Bulge were airmen. And then what you're looking at is that after the Battle of the Bulge, you had a lot of the land forces that were taken and held, where the Germans said, for you, the war is over. And I just wrote a piece about the Berge concentration camp, which was, it wasn't central Germany. It was kind of southeastern Germany, so it would be more in the southern, or it would be more in the Soviet sphere of when they were coming in from the east and heading west. And that was actually a concentration camp. There were Christians there. There was a lot of different religions there, but they had segregated the Jews from the American military that was there. And it was a slave labor camp. They built armaments plants in the middle of mountains. And they said that when the soldiers were working, they saw Buchenwald survivors in there. And they said, we're going to end up turning into these guys that had no food, no rest, no recovery, and so on. And they did. And that the toxins from being inside the mountain were so bad that they would be throwing up blood and stuff like that.
Jesus.
So that was at the very end of the war. It did not take long for those guys to get kind of emancipated. You know, like they were, you know, whittled down to nothing. And the German soldiers were very indifferent. Another American's going to die. That's it, you know. And the crazy part of that camp was
Buchenwald?
Not Buchenwald. Berge.
Yeah.
What Buchenwald wasn't too far from it. Was that Berge, the town was beautiful. Yeah. And they walked through the town, and unlike some German cities and towns that were completely bombed and almost annihilated, where those German civilians would attack the American soldiers that were prisoners, air crews and stuff like that. They didn't do that there. They were more curious about the American soldiers itself. They did nothing to help them out, but they were more curious. So maybe by just the curiosity of staring was something that helped them out, where they weren't hitting them with a pitchfork or throwing things at them, or, you know, stuff like that. So
they weren't doing what the Japanese were doing.
Yeah, well, the Germans too were no Boy Scouts. So, but it's interesting. It's very interesting. Americans went through there, and you know, you had Jewish American airmen, soldiers that were able to hide their identity. But then they felt a sense of guilt where Jewish soldiers who did not do that were segregated off, and then days later they end up saying, I'm Jewish, I should be with these guys here. It's just a crazy part of the war. But it's interesting. It's called, what is it called? Soldiers and Slaves. And it's American. I think it's, who's the author? Cohen, maybe? Might be the author itself. And it was written a number of years ago. But it's, and it was actually a guy, there's two interesting stories that relate to New York. One was an American soldier that was almost an interpreter between the American prisoners and the Germans at Berge, who spent time at Camp Upton, which is now Brookhaven Lab. It's exit 68 off the Long Island Expressway. And he trained out there. And then the second story was, and this is crazy, is that a lot of the German interpreters and interrogators were educated here in the United States.
Really?
They weren't just guys with rough accents and, you know, brawny guys that were looking to beat the hell out of you. They were people who answered the call from Hitler and the Third Reich and Goebbels and, you know, all those criminals, right, that were running the German government to come back and fight for the fatherland. So there was a guy from Buffalo who was there, and he remembered the man that interrogated him, right? He actually delivered his paper to him when he lived in Buffalo. He knew the name, he knew the guy, and so on. Wow. So they always kind of said, like, the Jewish American prisoners, even though, you know, they most of them had survived the war or were, with the regular soldiers, right? That they were never really out of the woods. That they could have been denounced by even one of their own soldiers through anti-Semitism or whatever agenda that person was carrying, or the Germans realized it. There was always like a little bad luck that was out there. And this guy lived in Buffalo, and the man he delivers his paper to interrogated him in the camp there. Yeah. And the interrogation was, all right, tell us about who you are, where you came from, your unit, and so on. And these guys always tried to say name, rank, and serial number, right? And that goes right out the window sometimes. So, and then they're passing chocolates across the table and cigarettes across the table. Hey, you want a cup of coffee? Yeah. It's not, we're just going to pull out your fingernails. Yeah, it's,
they hey,
you haven't eaten. We had a fresh, pot here, and we got some cake and German chocolate, And as much as the guys are starving, a lot of them said, I can't go beyond these three things: name, rank, and serial number. But yeah, so it's been a pretty interesting time. It's just been running wild. I'm not sure if the cameras could see any gray hair punching through right now, but I've been running, running a little bit, and coaching baseball, and I'm trying to come into the Holocaust Museum, where hopefully I have some podcasts next week. I've been slowing down with that a little bit because of the expansion of the museum. I'm just all over the place, So, but the museum is coming. Yep. It's coming, and it's going to be something that's very good.
Where is it again?
It's in Rocky. It's in Rocky Point. It's in the old part of the town. We're probably on the Shoreham side of the town itself. So you have Rocky Point. You have Mill Place on one side, Shoreham on the other side. So we're in the older part, which is probably maybe a half a mile from the Shoreham border.
All right.
And it looks like an old schoolhouse. And then we had the Rocky Point train station that we filled in. Yeah. And we got 500 more square feet, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is in terms of for a museum. And then we got 500 square feet up top in terms of the ceilings, where there's all going to be pictures and exhibits and stuff like that. So it really is a good thing. So
definitely going to check it out.
Yeah, May 22nd. It's a good thing. We're going to have a little luncheon after it and so on. So,
all right. So I think a good place to start talking today is the current situation in Iran. The U.S. military has been at war with the Iranian regime for, what has it been?
Since 1979.
Oh,
yeah.
I was going to say at least a month, but yeah.
So this is the sheer expansion of it, like just running into a brick wall where that's it. There's no more. Even though Trump is a negotiator, right? Land developer, businessman.
Yep.
He always believes that there's a deal to be made, right? The fighting, I think it finally ran its course.
Yes.
Every one of the last number of presidents, from Reagan coming all the way up, right? They could afford a war against Iranians at any one time or another. So, and, I don't always love everything that Trump says and does. I think he sometimes says some controversial things and this and that. But that country can never be permitted to have a nuclear bomb. They call that the Pakistan effect.
Yeah.
Before Pakistan got the bomb, you could push the country around.
Yeah.
After Pakistan got the bomb, now it's kid gloves. And to have, you see them, they're firing rockets against their own neighbors.
So,
you
believe that if the Iranians get the bomb, it's just assurance that they can continue to just bully everyone around?
Yeah, at least in that region, in that area of the Indian Ocean, which is a huge crossroads from Africa to Japan, right? They definitely, because you don't impoverish your own people by all the sanctions that country has endured against. They're really they're almost like a Venezuela, right? Do they make other things? Yeah, sure. But their key export is fuel.
Yeah.
Right? And look what the Venezuelans did. Look what the socialist government did. They ran that country in the ground. you got black gold
Yeah.
within that part of the Caribbean, within that part of that country, and so on.
Yeah.
Black gold. And they ran it right into the ground. They're doing the same thing in terms of Iran. There's no way that inflation should be as rampant as it is there. Those people are living, who knows if it's even paycheck to paycheck. Those people have nothing. You have a whole generation of younger people who are kind of saying now, maybe this religion is too strict. Maybe, we're becoming a pariah. You have other countries that said, all right, we're going to drive the Israelis into the Mediterranean, right? But those countries have come around now.
Yeah.
Okay, since the Camp David Accords under Jimmy Carter, right?
Yeah.
So, and they realize that, can you hurt Israel? Yeah, sure. But are you going to drive them into the Mediterranean Sea? Absolutely not. And they're one of the strongest military powers in the world. They're like a pit bull. They're either going to start the bleeding or end the bleeding, and Iran has proven, they've proven a couple of things. One, that their military can get wiped out.
Yeah.
Their Navy, their Air Force, their military leaders,
Rocket.
and so on. But on the other side of that coin, they've also proven that, like with these drones, I don't know, I hate to say it, but maybe it's something where, our government has to learn some lessons from this here.
Yeah.
I thought we would have learned a little bit more from what the Ukrainians went through.
Yeah.
Where we would have had a little bit more information and know-how on how to deal with some of these drones, where the technology is not that great, but it seems like they could do a lot of damage, and it's almost like Hitler's V1 and V2 rockets that were fired from those launching sites in Germany, and Belgium, and northern France on the coast, where they called them the buzz bombs, and they knew it would come in, but they didn't know when or where. And I guess that's one of the reasons why Market Garden, which was not a success, Operation Market Garden, was because they were trying to get to some of those sites where they were firing it. And it's tough, it's something where American technology is the best in the world, but it's got to be very productive very quickly in dealing with a technology that's not that hard, but it is very inconsistent to deal with, And Iranians the more rockets they fire against the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they're just they're doing two things. One, they're digging a bigger divide between them and their neighbors. And the second thing is before this was happening, you had like Saudi Arabia and these countries. Now they're scratching their head and saying, all right, maybe the United States wasn't wrong after all. Maybe we were correct to be back on our foot dealing with this country here. You know, so it shows that they're just incapable of acting in any sort of way of being like part of the global community. Yeah. So in a very volatile region itself. I hope that Trump, I'm going to maybe curse here. Am I allowed to curse?
Right? You're asking me for it. All right.
Go ahead, curse. He's got to shit or get off the pot.
Yes.
All right, because the negotiating is a good thing.
Yep.
But now the negotiating is further pushing out the fuel prices. It's waiting longer.
Yeah.
It's either, it's one or the other, and he's said a number of times, I'm going to go after water purification plants, the bridges, electrical.
Desalination plants.
Yeah, all these things where they have no money to begin with. Now you start bombing this. Maybe the people start coming around again like they did a couple months ago, where they actually revolted. They actually went after the Iranian police and the military and stuff. And then they got killed. 30,000 of them got killed that you know of. Yeah. And wait a couple of years down the road when they start writing the books about this stuff where they say, listen, the number's a lot higher. It's
name of the show.
Yeah,
history repeats.
It's crazy, and the country has to come up with something here. Where the Straits of Hormuz, I mean, we're straight across from Connecticut, right?
Yeah,
and southern New York State, right? Rye, New York. this country's got to figure out something, how to keep those straits open.
Yeah.
Because it's just a disaster for not only us, but the rest of the world. And the thing that we've done in terms of being positive is we're drilling for more oil.
Yep.
Where we get hurt is a lack of confidence within the market because you have less of a supply coming out of that huge area. What is it, 20% of the world's supply, right? So,
yeah.
But who knows? Maybe the longer it goes on, it shows these other countries that have been giving the Iranians money and technology and giving pictures of our troop placements and stuff like that. Hey, wait a second. Maybe the United States isn't so far off with this after all.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Maybe it will have long-term positive goals. If my one hope is a lot, as you mentioned before, oil is basically what fuels a lot of these regimes. Iran, Venezuela. Maybe if the war goes on, oil prices stay high, we move to a different source, and these guys stop getting all the money that they need to power their regime.
Well, that ain't happening because you see with Trump, all those electric mandates with electric vehicles and stuff like that, and they did away with them. I think they made too many of those cars. People weren't buying them.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things where you have to get away from fuel. Yeah, sure. But is it going to happen anytime soon? I don't. That's a tough nut. Maybe down the road at some point. But this country's got to figure out a way of drilling for our own fuel and not being completely tied to that area because it's just so unpredictable.
Yeah.
I was a kid in the 1980s, and Reagan was basically putting the American flags on a lot of the ships. A lot of the tankers going through the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah.
If you attack those ships and you attack the United States. And we actually took over an oil platform, and I think there was a lot of covert stuff that was going on with the Iranian government. So it's a tough thing. You can't trust them. They don't negotiate in good faith. Like they say, all right, we're going to open up the strait. Less than 24 hours later, they're shooting at tankers, so they're almost, what they remind me of? They remind me of like those pirates off of Somalia.
Yeah.
I
think at this point,
they just got a little more money and technology, but you can't deal with them. It's the craziest thing. And then locally, the USS Michael Murphy, who was awarded the Medal of Honor, a Patchogue kid, he goes to Patchogue Medford High School and then Penn State. He's a history major and a psychology major, all this stuff at Penn State. Could have went to law school. He's a Navy SEAL. His ship is in the Persian Gulf. So his ship has been in that like neck of the woods of the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Persian Gulf. But it's just I think they're a problem that sooner or later is going to have to be severely dealt with. For those people there, for the younger generations to say,
so that
we have no chance here under this regime,
So that leads to my next question. I don't think this ends without a ground invasion, if I'm being honest. Maybe he can keep hitting them until the point where they are back to the Stone Age, but just realistically.
I think the only ground invasion that you'll see is around those nuclear sites.
Yeah.
Is that they take over the areas that are around there and they try to get to those materials. But if they go after their infrastructure, they're it's a house of cards.
Yeah.
And the cards are getting pulled out. Like, look at the blockade.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever shipping they have, they're not making any money. And we're controlling the skies over the country. So I can't imagine there's too many jumbo jets flying in and out of there with goods and services. And you have a lot of the countries. I mean, they attacked Armenia and the countries up in the Caucasus.
Yeah.
They're not happy. I don't know if they're going to keep the border open for them to bring goods and services over. So they're economically in a very, very tough spot that they put themselves in. They put themselves in over all these years. How many American dead soldiers were there from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan based on their intelligence and based on them, with their proxies and stuff like that? It's crazy. It's and it's not one or two. You're looking at hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah.
Roadside bombs. Well, who taught them how to do this stuff here? Who gave them the materials how to do this? Who gave them the money? Who gave them the confidence? Hey, you can do this here. Who gave them the intelligence? It's,
Who backed the
Houthis, I mean, too.
Shiite-led government that helped spawn ISIS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bad mix.
So
it really is.
How do you see this war ending? And also maybe when?
I see that Trump, his hairpiece looks like it wants to get up and run away on me. All right? That thing looks like a raccoon on a bad day, So I think he ends up going after the roads, the bridges, the tunnels, infrastructure, the water purification. I think he goes after whatever crops they have, whatever storage. I think they're going to end up going in there and start carpet bombing that place. And they're going to do some precision bombing, okay? And I think they're going to pinpoint things because it's like World War II with Germany and Japan.
Yeah.
Okay, as bad as it sounds, the people have to feel the sting a little bit for them to say that we're not going to support this government any longer. All right, why does Hitler keep on fighting? Because he knows the Allies are never going to negotiate with him. Why does the Japanese keep on fighting? Because they know after Pearl Harbor, that's it. It gets to a point where the people, they feel the sting of the fighting, and it's not fair on them. But sometimes they supported these guys that were no good. Sometimes it was with a rifle pointed in their back as well. So just not a good situation.
Well, thank you, Rich. Very insightful about the Iran war. Hoping it ends sometime soon. Not too many more people have to die. This has been History Repeats. I'm your host, Liam Carballal, and I hope you guys will tune in next time.